Hello, everyone, and welcome to another one of the GC MasterClass Series from Contract Pod AI. I am Charles Dimov. I am the Vice President of Global Marketing at Contract Pod, and with me today I have Steve Rigler from Inmarsat. Steve, would you mind introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about Inmarsat as well?
Sure. Hi, Charles. It's great to speak with you always, and thank you for making the time for us to speak together. My name is Steve Rigler, Director of Contract Operations at Inmarsat, and I've been at Inmarsat just over a year now. I'm mainly from the defence side of the business, and for Inmarsat, it's a fantastic company to work for. You know, we're a pioneer and a world leader in satellite communications. And from our humble upbringing from being part of the IMO, we've been around for over 4 decades with a global reach. And the nice thing about Inmarsat is that we operate across land, sea, and air in various different markets. And we have a global footprint with an expert distribution of partners that help to serve what we're looking for around the world. And the kind of common thread that ties it all together are end users that need highly reliable and extensive high-speed data and voice communication network. And that's our forte to the market.
Now, Steve, tell me a little bit about your team at Inmarsat and what are some of the key areas that you really focus on?
Yeah, so we're in contract operations, a little bit unique for most organizations. We actually fit within the procurement team, which is nice. It means that as a team, we are very commercially orientated. So my colleagues are drafting and negotiating all the contracts from a supplier perspective, so they get involved in all the commercial deals. And we in contract operations draft and negotiate all the contracts from a sales perspective. So there's a team of 7 here, and we each have a different business unit based upon kind of the areas of the business that we work on. So, you know, we have an aviation side of the business, we have an enterprise side of the business, we have a very large government side of the business that works all around the world. But our core strength and our legacy is probably maritime, which is our largest business unit, and then we have people supporting that side of things. So on like a day-to-day type of arrangement, you know, we'll work very closely with the sales teams, the commercial teams, and we'll help to draft, negotiate, and execute contracts from helping airlines provide connectivity to their users on board airplanes. So conscious there's probably not much of that going on at the moment, all the way through to enterprise customers that may have a tea plantation service in India, and then they're recording all the humidity and soil moisture and providing all that data analytics to a cloud-based system somewhere so that they can run data analytics from that to be able to work out the best harvest of crops. These common customers all require massive amounts of data, and that's where we help.
This year, I mean, of course, no surprise to everybody. I mean, this year we've all had challenges with COVID. Now, you've been deeply involved with Inmarsat's kind of contract management process through this phase, in fact. And in fact, you've been kind of on the cusp of changing things at Inmarsat quite a bit. You brought in a new contract lifecycle management system. That's great. Congratulations. That's fantastic news. And frankly, but that really does drive quite a bit of change in the organization itself. It's not sort of an overnight thing. It's not something that you just sort of like wake up one morning and say, hey, I'm doing this. So can you tell us a little bit about what drove the significant digital transformation, because that's what this is, process inside of your legal team and the company overall? I mean, what drove that?
Great question. So as a company, we are trying to continuously improve and develop not just our product offering, but also our performance to customers and our improvement in customer satisfaction all the time. And actually, as a department, we have our own little mission statement, which is to be proactive, to be efficient and effective, to advise to the commercial and contractual risks to the business. And this is in order to maximize our financial and operational performance. So what we've tried to do as a department is embed ourselves within the commercial operations side of the business, just to provide that guidance and commercial thought thinking and leadership that we can provide as a team. So we all have our own skill sets from different industries. We are very commercial orientated, but we all have a very strong contracts background. So we understand the obligations and rights that you would put into a contract in order to make sure you have the best behaviors.
Yes.
So, as a team, we identified pretty early on that the contract landscape wasn't in the best fit position it could be. Yeah. So from senior management, and senior management were pretty tight on this, we created a project called Project Streamline. And this involved the digitalization of all of our contracts and to ensure that we migrated lots of different legacy contracts onto a single framework agreement. So we kind of looked at systems that could provide AI functionality, easier contract repository, full audit identification, contract digitalization in terms of signature and the through life, and also easier way to kind of draft and negotiate contracts as well. And luckily for ContractPod.ai, you guys won the contract on that one. And I'll just give you a simple.
Thank you, by the way.
You're very welcome. I'll give you like a simple example of what our previous system was like. So, Credit came to me and they said to me, Steve, I want you to use the top 5 customers and identify what our credit risk position is for obligations if these customers default on payment, which is, as we move in these uncertain times, is really necessary to be able to work out from an operational perspective how you best kind of like work with customers and make sure that you get payments in time, because cash is king, right? So when I took a look at those top 5 customers, there were literally over 40 agreements to go through. Right. And it took me probably a solid 2 business days to really go through each contract in detail and write out the information that the credit team were looking for. Mm-hmm. But if you recall what I'm doing here, I'm taking a snapshot in time. So it's only good that day I complete the information, because the next day or the next week or the next month or the next year, we could well change those contracts or change the positions. So that report I had created is only ever good that one period of time. And so what we're hoping to do when we've unlocked all the functionality from ContractPod.ai through reporting and AI is that we can press a button and it will automatically run that report for us. So this then, first of all, there's 2 things out of this. First of all, it frees up our time to create more value add, and it gives information in real time to the business to be able to allow them to really make crucial strategic decisions in quick time. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a real benefit that the new contract management system through ContractPod.ai will deliver to us. Furthermore, we also project streamlines in terms of migrating our contracts. We understood there was a need to digitize everything, or as much as the part of the process as we can do. So now we are completely paperless, and we've moved to that system. And thank you very much. And we moved from the audit trail, which is currently captured through Salesforce, and then we move into ContractPod.ai for the full contract negotiating, drafting, and audit repository. And then we use the ContractPod.ai functionality to digitize and get the signatures on the contract and then record it in a repository. So this has really helped out in these unforeseen times when, back in March, we could never have known we wouldn't be back in the office again for 6 months and wouldn't be signing contracts by hand. So luckily, we had implemented stages of the system before everything started going that way, so that we were in a good progress to make sure that we could onboard customers quickly during these uncertain times.
Now, let me kind of segue on that one, because there are a couple of interesting points. When I think about something like contract automation, which many contract lifecycle management systems have, so contract automation and the AI, the artificial intelligence in it, these are some capabilities that your current system has, which is great. Now, can you tell me a little bit about how these initiatives been used or just interesting to Inmarsat?
Yeah, sure. So I'll talk about what we had before ContractPod.ai, and I think that will give a bit of a context about where we are today and then where we see ourselves in the future. So as part of our legacy system, we would create the contract reference number, and then we would take this Word template that we would use our master template, create a folder, put it in the folder, amend it, and then send it over to the customer. There was no particular audit history there. Files would inevitably get lost. People would keep files on their laptops, and then, when people move, you end up losing a lot of information, which is not great for when you're trying to picture a story. So what we've done with implementing Contract Pod A, we've kind of broken this down into two phases. The first phase is that Contract Pod A, for us, allows you to have forms based upon proper templates that are approved by the legal team. And you completing these forms in the fields then allows a quick draft of the contract, which will then be on the standard template, and that then allows you then to issue that out to the customer for review and execution. So that's the first phase. That saves some time and provides a full audit history, and you can see the changes between one version to the next. The second phase for us is, as I talked about earlier, we have a separate sales pipeline platform called Salesforce. Right. And we use Salesforce for our audit history around the business, for the business to say, yes, we believe this is a good deal and we approve it. So, for example, credit will approve every single request that from a sales perspective, because they'll take a look at to say, what's the age debt? What's the risk of entering contractual discussions with this company? Do we even want to sell to them? Because if they have significant age debt, maybe we want to go down a parent company guarantee, or have some kind of escrowing system, or have some other financial protection for us in place based upon their credit score. So that's just one area. The commercial team will also take a look at the commercial deal, from a profit and loss perspective. Does it make sense over the duration of the contract? At what point do we get positive ROI?
So now, since you've just gone through this whole implementation phase, implementations are not necessarily easy, specifically on a big system like a contract lifecycle management system. And so this is a change program inside of the company. Now, what were some of the challenges that you faced that maybe you can kind of share with some of our viewers and just say, hey, this is stuff that you should be thinking about?
Yeah, sure. So this was a project that touched many different stakeholders throughout the business, from the sales team to the credit team to the commercial team to the operational team. So if I can provide some challenges along the way, sometimes it's all about the right messaging is being communicated in the right manner to internal stakeholders, and just to make sure that you get that alignment throughout the business. So, there's often this kind of mantra when you talk about, upsetting the status quo. So, change is difficult sometimes. Change actually takes time and it can be risky. And although we had a very strong mission statement as part of this project, and we had some strong goals that we were aiming for, that was going to make operational and commercial benefits to both the business and the customer, it still requires the business to spend money and time and resource in order to allocate to that. And that's both from an internal perspective and from a customer perspective. So we needed to make sure that we had the right senior executive sponsorship in the right place at the right time to help align the company values, and also help from a customer perspective to build up those relationships from a senior perspective as well. Because unless you can get the company as a role to kind of follow this through, and you get the right kind of sponsorship, then it's going to be difficult to keep the traction going and moving forward.
Absolutely.
So I would say that was probably one of the challenges that we addressed pretty early on, by having a senior sponsor to sponsor and chair some of the meetings initially, so that we had the right stakeholders there initially. And then we put together a very comprehensive project plan that we tried to get all the stakeholders to have some input into, because then they have that sense of, now they're part of the project and they need to deliver to make sure it's a success. So having them on that emotive journey often helps as well to kind of break down those barriers. The other area that I should talk about from a customer perspective. So, I talked about earlier how we have over 4,000 customers. Yes. Not all customers can be treated the same way, just because of the volume of them. So, we have two different models when we go to market. We have the distributors, who in part typically are the higher turnover of our customers, just because they buy more services that they then sell locally to their own customers. Right. And then we have the end users who we directly interface with. So we took a look at it in terms of, we had different tiers of distributors and end users based upon, kind of spend, strategic value, and so forth. And we had to take a look at each of them in turn to say what would be the optimal strategy to try to facilitate them moving on to a new contract. Do they need presentations to help with that telling a story? Do they need meetings? Do we need, as Inmarsat, to do a comparison between their old contracts to the new contract? And we tried to make this as seamless as possible from their perspective, so they didn't need to spend a huge amount of effort moving on to the new contract, and they could then trust that the new contracts they were moving to was in their best interests, and they were no worse off. So that requires a significant amount of support from their perspective and trust as well that it took time to build up and show, really.
Yeah. So it sounds like, some really, really smart moves on your part. One is getting that sponsor, an executive sponsor, kind of engaged, getting various different teams throughout the organization involved as well, and sticking with it. So that's good. Tell me now about, were there any pleasant surprises that kind of came about from your implementation when you were putting it all together and kind of running it?
Yes. So I'll quickly talk about the project, because then I'll tie it into the CLM implementation, because they're both really tied into each other. So when we were taking a look at the scope of work for Project Streamline, we had a very large number of customers and a very, very large number of contracts that we had to migrate down to a few key contracts. So we realized quite quickly that we would need smart tools in order to be able to facilitate with this. So, tools to help pull out the scope of work, tools to pull out what we're going to do with kind of customers and segmentation, tools to help with the onboarding of new customers so that it becomes seamless from their perspective for operational efficiency, and tools to make sure that we understand the contract, the whole contract environment, to make sure there's no conflicting rights and obligations in our different types of contracts. So what we realized is that an enabler for us is the use of smart technology. And what I mean by that is that there are some really sophisticated tools out there on the market, Contract Pod AI being one of them, that you can utilize in your own teams in order to make the right strategic decisions. So for us, digitization of contracts was a no-brainer. It made complete sense. There's no need to send, for us anyway, there was no need to send contracts all around the world to be hand signature, which I think is more than ever evidence in this kind of the world. The use of Contract Pod AI and other type systems to do AI reporting, that again really saves a lot of hand churn of doing kind of the data analytics and looking through things, which is very, very time consuming. So I think for us, it's just the fact that we open our eyes up to what the market can provide in terms of what you can get from different systems to make your life easy. You don't have to do everything by hand anymore. There are systems out there to automate a lot of this process and make a lot of things very much more process efficient.
No, that's excellent, and thank you for bringing up that learning from Inmarsat's part, because that absolutely makes sense. And I think there's a lot of companies that could definitely, use that type of system to just kind of a big shot in the arm or a boost for their own productivity and efficiency and capabilities in their own company. So that's really good. So based on your success with your digital transformation journey at Inmarsat, what would you recommend to any other GCs if they were saying, hey, what's one thing, Steve, that you could recommend to me that I should do or focus on, so I can have as much success as you've had with your digital transformation project? What would that one thing be?
Yeah, I would say spend time on the mission statement and what the aims and goals are for the project, and really have a think about who, from a senior sponsorship side of things, would be best to deliver that to the wider organization.
Yeah.
So, any big project, you're likely to shift what your deliverables are during the life of the project. But I'm of the opinion that without a really clear and objective for the end, then you're never going to be able to meet the deliverables of the project, and it's always going to continue to get extended. And so sometimes it's easier to do short segments, kind of the agile way, where that in engineering terms, where they look at things in short little sprints. And other ways, for me, is more of the waterfall effect, where you have an end goal, you try and break it down systematically about this is what I'm going to deliver here, this is what I'm going to deliver here, and then eventually you come to success. And making sure your stakeholders are aligned along the process as well, to make sure that they have their right buy-ins at the right time.
So Steve, and I've had you for quite a while here, so thanks for spending your time, but one last question, which is any last words for anyone else about to undertake a similar project?
Yes. So for me, I took a look out there to say, what are some best practice tips for implementing a similar kind of project?
Yeah.
So for contract operations project Streamline, IACCM really sets out some best tips that you can then follow in order to get success in your project. Requires hard work at the same time, but I would really recommend taking the time to strategically think about some of these areas before you dive in. So, develop a very strong project charter, develop a mission statement, have a think about your senior executive, think about the cadence plan for working with stakeholders and the messaging. If you can align those from the outset and you can have a good thought about it to begin with, I believe that you're going to have a more chance of success than just diving into a project.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, with that, Steve, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. Congratulations on the project at Inmarsat. This has been a spectacular journey. It's taken a little while, lots of effort from your side, but again, I think the successes were well worth it. And you've got a much stronger team now that are able to just go out and accomplish so much more now. And definitely a big boon for the company as well. So that's absolutely tremendous. Again, thank you so much for joining me on the GC Masterclass Series. It's been a delightful chat. And again, good luck with this, the ongoing project. And hopefully we'll have an opportunity to chat with you again sometime in the near future to hear what are some of the great successes you're continuing to have.
Thank you, Charles. Absolute pleasure. Speak again as always. Thank you.